Oh joy. Pauline, welcome to the tropical coast of Queensland, Pauline. I believe you're a senator here in Queensland, and you have no idea what's going on in Queensland, do you, Pauline? At all. Now, we're talking about immigration problems with Albo, aren't we? And Albo's proposing to divide the country more by its loyalties, by bringing a whole bunch of new immigrants in so that they can be good citizens for the little machine that Albo runs, which is not our government. It's an administrative power here, brought here by foreign banking powers to manage this country. And they want to bring more immigrants in, Pauline, to divide the loyalty of the country and make sure the citizenry perform the slavery duties that Albo wants in his banking forced industrial revolution system. Now we could go into a lot of legal problems that Albo has caused that open the door up to see him being charged, Pauline, under section 80.2 of the Criminal Code in relation to a referendum, Pauline, in relation to a referendum and inciting violence between yes and no campaigners, Pauline. Now, we go back to this immigration problem because Albo wants to divide the country's loyalty more, but by bringing in more foreigners into the country, Pauline. But I'm on the Port Douglas to Smithfield coast right now, Pauline, after having travelled all the way to the tip of the Cape to meet the people at Barmaga. And I'll tell that story next, Pauline. But we really need to address your immigration problem and what you're doing with the immigration to divide the country even further and manipulate it in a financial slavery. Now, do you remember how we mentioned backpackers and how they were slaves and how they went to work in horrid conditions that gave them things like blisters the size of saucers and ball rash that made their skin turn to water, Pauline? We already talked about that. Well, these backpackers have conned on to all of your plans, and now they don't do that stuff anymore, Pauline. They do everything in their power not to do that stuff. And they don't pay rent anywhere, and they don't participate in the community anywhere. They suck the wealth out of this country, and they use and abuse it now, Pauline. Now, if I was to travel literally 1.5 kilometres south of where I am here at Ellis Beach, Pauline, you'll find an entire encampment of backpackers parked in a car park where there are no camping signs everywhere. Now, you've stopped Australians from using their very own beaches and being able to camp and enjoy the very surf and water that splashes onto those beaches, because that's what councils do, Pauline. They restrict the real people from accessing things that corporations now believe they own. And this is where these backpackers have conned onto it all, Pauline. And when we look at it, when we really look at it, you want to bring immigrants into the country for what purpose? What purpose, Albo? Yeah, you haven't defined the change to the voice in the referendum, the constitutional change in that referendum, and now you want to bring all these immigrants in to divide the country more, and we haven't even discussed what the states have done. But at the same time, we look at this immigration problem, Pauline, and these backpackers are taking the piss, and the locals here, they've had enough. They don't want your toilet paper in the beaches anymore. They don't want you squatting in the bushes having shits. They don't want your rubbish being left behind in car parks all across the country. These people are filthy people, Pauline, and I think we should cancel all of their immigration visas full stop. No more 457s, no more 417s, no more backpackers slaving to get ball sweat and blisters to have a second year in this country, Pauline. Just don't give them the first year. They're taking the piss out of our economy. They're taking the piss out of our job opportunities, right? To squander and to poo in the bushes and to leave their toilet paper everywhere and their rubbish everywhere while they act with an air of arrogance that they are somewhat not liable to all of the legal problems that they may face. Now, I remember years ago, Pauline, that these council rangers and these police were onto all of this, and in the last 4 to 5 years, you don't care. You honestly don't care. And we as a people, we think you should cancel all these backpackers' visas and send them home, Pauline. I mean, 70,000 wankers pooing in the bushes and dropping toilet paper over everything can go home. And then you could let 70,000 real immigrants in who want to buy homes and participate in the economy. That would be at the pleasure of the Crown instead of allowing backpackers to trash that pleasure, Pauline. It's a disgrace. It's a total disgrace. And we're watching very clearly from our prerogative right. And when we start to flex that prerogative right, Pauline, what are you going to do? Legally in a courtroom, what are you going to do? Because now we see Nicholas Aroney on the Channel 7s doing a full interview in relation to what he thinks that the voice is going to change in the Constitution. And in that interview, Pauline, he doesn't define any specific changes. He talks about his political rhetoric when he's supposed to talk about the law. He's a total failure, this Nicholas Aroney, Pauline. He's a total failure. So when we talk about constitutional lawyers lying to the media, and we'll go through that video later because I've downloaded that video specifically to attack Nicholas Aroney for his lies on the national media again, Pauline. This is one of your constitutional experts being called out for a second time, blatantly lying to the people. Is this what you are in your modus operandi under a oath of fidelity to foreign powers, Pauline? Is this what happens? You disregard the will of the people and you take this line instead. And you choose to divide the country with more immigrants and you fail to address the problems that your current immigrants are creating in this country. That's who you are. It's just a bunch of liars who say one thing but mean another, while you undermine the very people to keep them under some sort of control. Now, we look at land, Pauline, and how you control people with that land. And we're going to look at the state of Queensland and you giving away things, giving things back to people that never owned them in the first place. Never owned them in the first place, Pauline. Giving away the people's crown to a body of people that aren't the crown, Pauline. That aren't the crown, Pauline. But believing that you're giving something back that they never owned in the first place, Pauline. That they never owned in the first place, Pauline. And this is the problem that you're going to find moving forward legally, isn't it, Pauline? Once this prerogative right is flexed and demanded of you in a line of authority to that Constitution, Pauline. And these immigrants, they're the ones dividing that Constitution on behalf of Albo. Albo's a liar, Albo's a con man, Albo's a thief. Okay, this is the stark reality that we've all realised since Labor took power in a planned takeover of government. A planned takeover of government, Pauline, in a scam election wherein we don't see the people's vote coming to fruition. We see a planned undermining of the very Constitution at which I have a prerogative right over, Pauline, given to me by my people and the justices of the Supreme Court. That's a right you as politicians just simply do not hold, Pauline. Just simply do not hold. So when we talk about these problems of land titles, immigration, and the division of our country against us, we start to look at the state of Queensland, Pauline. And the only reason we're going to do that is, number one, you're a senator for Queensland. And number two, I reside in what we would call the state of Queensland. And you seem to treat us all like paupers and you're slaves. While you allow an immigrant population to undermine us with taking of our jobs, with the destruction of our land, with toilet paper and poo-poos, Pauline, with toilet paper, poo-poos and rubbish, Pauline. I mean, when do you address the problems that you obviously don't care about when you are talking about a financial-driven economy that Albo believes he runs on behalf of bankers, those elitists that he got caught out working with in the Federal Executive Council, Pauline, and under the executive branches of government, under the prerogative right of a line of authority in the true allegiance of a king, Pauline, a real king, Pauline, that stood up before the justices of this land and defined that line of authority at law very, very clearly. So we talk about immigration, but we bring up so many other problems. And what we'd like to see you address, Pauline, is the direct, stark failure of you as a senator for Queensland in relation to your own state and the backpackers you allow to travel across this state and destroy it. And destroy it, Pauline. These people are not very nice. These people are treating this country like their disco, like their little playground. And they are little children that think they don't have to clean up after themselves. And this is the air of arrogance that you've sowed into these people on purpose to allow them to get away with this. To allow them to get away with this, Pauline, just to undermine the very people in the towns and cities that these backpackers go and visit, Pauline. And that's the total disgrace here, Pauline. You've been caught out at dividing the country with an immigration policy. You've been caught out at your undermining of the Constitution. You've been caught out at your inability as the Senate to even know what's going on. And it's been very demonstrated very clearly in front of all that you as senators are years behind the post. Years, Pauline. You had to catch up on 5 or 6 or 7 years worth of the undermining of the state of Queensland, Pauline. So what are you giving away? And to who, Pauline? To who? To a bunch of people that never owned it in the first place, Pauline. Never owned it in the first place, Pauline. So we're going to look at your Cuckoo Yalangji mob and what you've done and how you've undermined the top end here. How you've undermined the Crown and the people and the towns and the cities by using a minority population to undermine them, Pauline. This minority population's called the Cuckoo Yalangji mob, and they're on the Cairns Post this morning begging everyone to vote yes. Well, I'm about to undermine that yes with a whole bunch of truths that you're not willing to face, Pauline, as I get in the car and drive up to Mossman Gorge, which is only about 50k up the road, Pauline. And I'm going to show you very, very, very clearly what you've done, not only to the Cuckoo Yalangji people, but the people of Queensland, by undermining the people of Queensland, Pauline. Right, and this doubles on your immigration, doesn't it, Pauline? Because now you've doubled down on undermining the people of the Crown. Undermining the people of the Crown while you push their economy into poverty, Pauline. While fuel, I paid $3.10 a litre for fuel, Pauline. $3.10. That's your responsibility, Pauline. That's your failure, Pauline. In the state of Queensland, as a Queensland senator, you've allowed that to occur. Now, we could go into the Commonwealth something CEQ, which is supposed to alleviate the price of food across the top end here, but doesn't work, does it, Pauline? So shall we go into that big scam that the government created as well, Pauline, to undermine the very people of the Cape, Pauline? You're a state of Queensland senator, Pauline. At some point, you're going to have to pull your finger out and realise this one stark fact. We ain't going away anymore. You're a pack of criminals. You got caught out at international war crimes, and you're currently being caught out at using immigration to divide this country more, while you undermine it financially and undermine the land titles within the state of Queensland by giving it away to people that never owned it in the first place. It's catching up with you, Pauline, and when this all hits the courtroom, what the fuck are you gonna do? Like literally, what the fuck are you going to do? You're all lying. You are all conning the people. And when those lies are put on the courtroom record, or these people make complaints of corruption through the Attorney General's office, what are you going to do about facing up to that corruption, Pauline? Queenslanders have had enough. Queenslanders have had enough of your backpackers shitting all over their beaches. Queenslanders have had enough of all your four-wheel driving families shitting all over their four-wheel drive tracks, Pauline. Queenslanders have had enough of you using Aborigine to undermine their very land titles themselves, Pauline. Well, the Queenslanders have had enough. And when the rest of the country starts to see what you've done in the Cape, in your failures, Pauline, to address what's happening in your state of Queensland, Pauline, then the rest of the country, I'm sure, is going to get very pissed off with you as a federal parliament that have been demonstrated to be negligent in your duties. Totally negligent in your duties, Pauline. And this is where we come to. Your negligence has been proven by you speaking the evidence that I put on a video record in the Senate, Pauline, in the Senate. Speaking about things that you were negligent of, speaking about things that you were ignorant of on the Senate floor after myself, Stephen, had put them in front of you. After knowing these things had been going on for up to 15 years, Pauline. 15 years of you as senators being totally negligent and ignorant of the problems that this state of Queensland faces, Pauline. Now, you're starting to destroy this state with speedo cameras and red stripes into towns and more signs and more signs and more signs, Pauline. Are you on the revenue raise now? Are you creating a situation of liability on every road that Queenslanders use? I mean, let's address the fact that Queensland want to fine people $1,200 for not wearing a seatbelt, Pauline. $1,200, Pauline. You are con men. You are slave drivers. And if you can't see that $1,200 fine as a serious financial burden and burden of warfare created by you, a foreign curial power in this land, you need to wake the fuck up, Pauline, because Queenslanders are starting to have enough. They're not going to deal with $1,200 fines into the future. They're going to burn your fucking houses down if you're not careful, Pauline. This is the stark warning and the stark reality that you face. You've crossed the line, Pauline, and people all across your state of Queensland want to fuck your shit up, Pauline, because you're a bunch of liars, thieves, and con men. You are war criminals, you are state criminals, and you are federal criminals. And we've had enough. Why should we allow criminals to run the state of Queensland, Pauline? And why should we allow you, in your negligence, to represent Queensland in the Senate? You have proven yourself ignorant of the very things that are undermining this country. And the sad reality now, Pauline, is that this ain't going away. These people are starting to realise very, very quickly what you are and what you've done.